So, good day everybody, and I also want to first, before starting to give my talk, thank the organizers for the kind invitation to participate in this fantastic event. And so, my topic today is to talk about coded ware, titled here Northeast European Lowlands, which actually means in this case I will talk about the Eastern Baltic area. Focusing specifically on the areas of present-day Finland and the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. And this region, in many respects, as I try to show in the next maybe 20 minutes, differs quite significantly, both in its natural environment and socio-cultural environment, where the coded ware features appear in comparison to many other more southern areas. Also, I have to at this point already say that I'm not able to give too many definite answers to anything. This is more like presenting the present day situation in the area, and this most likely just causes more questions than explains anything. But first I will quickly go through the natural environment here. So we are moving in an area which is today fully within the boreal biogeographic zone, so meaning that it's heavily influenced, it's fully forested area and characterized by water in the form of rivers, water in the form of sea coast, water in the form of countless lakes, and also a lot of bogs, a lot of mires. So it's the waterways are actually kind of blocking the movement and the possibilities to lead certain ways of life, but they are also the routes and channels through which people, influences, and everything moved. What else is significant is that the whole area is shaped by the last glaciation. First of all, the last glaciation means that there's still ongoing land uplift. We are talking about very low-lying areas, lowlands, close to the sea coast. It also means that the terrain, the soils are formed and affected by last glaciation. The soils are generally poor for agricultural activities all the way down to the southern Baltic states, and this also has a certain implications for the possibilities to people to live certain ways of life. And also important factor here is that the whole third millennium in this area is thought to be period of climate change, generally towards more wet and more cooler climate and circumstances. So this is the natural setting. Then if we go into the sociocultural setting, this area still, if you look at the general presentations of prehistory of this area, it has a very strong this cultural historical tradition. So the area is chopped into multitude of different kind of archaeological cultures, depends from whose work you look at. People tend to call them with different names. That's not relevant here. What is relevant is that these are all hunter-gatherer cultures. So they are living on hunting, especially then fishing. Aquatic hunting and fishing are maybe the most important way of life for most of these populations, and then gathering. And they roam the whole area from the Baltic states to the Urals and beyond. And as I said, what is important here is exactly that we have no preceding farming populations or any populations relying on active food production predating the appearance of coded ware. Okay, southern Lithuania might be taken as an exception because of the globular amphora influences reaching that part, but they don't have any substantial effect further north. We do have, starting from the 6th millennium already, single pollen, presented single pollen evidence for the possible introduction of culticants, domesticated plants, but they are just single pollen evidence and they are highly contested. So when we go into macrofossil evidence, the first dated macrofossil goes to the 4th millennium, coming from the Åland Islands, but that is that's from the context of pitted ware culture. So, and actually I forgot to say here that I was asked actually yesterday a few times that what about the pitted ware culture in the Eastern Baltic? We don't have pitted ware culture in the Eastern Baltic. That remains in Sweden and comes all the way to Åland, but not further east. We have some singular finds from Western Finland, but we cannot say that this phenomena was actually established there. So we are talking about hunter-gatherers. So the first macrofossils go to the 4th millennium, but actually they get more numerous only in the Bronze Age, and also more continuous pollen curves date to the Bronze Age. So that's the time when cultivation really then only is established in this Eastern Baltic region. In some areas it was never established before the 20th century, if even then. Quickly, some of the features of these populations, they, especially from the 4th millennium onwards, they start to, at least part of the year, form quite big or larger agglomerations of housing, at least that's what we think, building especially in the North pit houses, above ground structures more in the Baltic states. Also increasingly from the 4th millennium, we have settlement burials and cemeteries. Cemeteries also often established just next to the settlements. So this is a feature that gets stronger over the time. And then we do have also evidence, again, from the 4th millennium onwards, especially of specialized craft production, long-distance exchange of goods, reaching 1,500 kilometers from their places of origin. These are very widespread networks, and these networks quite clearly tend to disrupt around the time that we have the corded ware emergence, corded ware features emerge into the Eastern Baltic region. So something definitely happens then. Then about the datings. Datings were already briefly referred to earlier today. The problem in the whole area is that generally we are moving on very thin ice. We have very few, like here is our colleague Petro Pesonen from his dissertation a few years ago. He has summed up all the available radiocarbon data, but in many of these cases, these graphs are by phase. They might be based only like handful 5 to 10 dates. If we consider, for example, corded, where we are still in this whole region, we have way less than 100 reliable dates. I would say somewhere in the range of 60 to 80 reliable dates. So we do see that we have a very strong hunter-gatherer presence in the area, but in many cases we have a gap in the datings. We have very little material that we can really pinpoint just to the centuries preceding the appearance of corded ware. So we can speculate that there was presence in general in the area, but we don't know each and every region within this territory what was the situation exactly when the corded ware was established. Then another noteworthy thing is that from the mid-3rd millennium onwards, we have, again, quite a big lack of dates. We have very heavily decreasing amount of archaeological material in general, and this is a big question concerning the cultural development and demography, and I will return to this at the end of this talk. But then, going to the corded ware, unlike many other regions in Europe, corded ware in the Eastern Baltic is known primarily through what we call settlement site finds. This means mainly pottery finds which cannot be connected to a certain burial. If we calculate them all together, we are nearly close to 500 find spots all through this region. Even we call them settlements, then it doesn't necessarily mean that they are like settlements in that sense. A settlement is often taken because in many cases, what you see go through the material, you have pieces from maybe 1, 2, 3 individual pots only. So, and often also corded ware settlements or these finds are made in connection to excavations of hunter-gatherer sites of previous or the contemporary time. So we have very little clear, clean corded ware complexes. So they are always basically mixed. So we cannot really say that these vessels indication of, for example, short-term presence of corded ware producing people on a site that was previously occupied by hunter-gatherers, or, for example, is this an indication between exchange of things, interaction between different pottery-producing populations, or are there some populations producing 2 different types of pottery? The mixed complexes are also the reason why we have a very poor understanding of the material culture of the corded ware beyond pottery, battle axes, then work axes, and a few other items usually then deposited in burials. So our picture of corded ware presence is largely based on ceramics, as well as thousands of battle axes spread all through this area. But as I said, we have a very few clean, proper complexes of corded ware, but we do have them. And if normally the corded ware sites are ephemeral, like with thin cultural layers, if we can even separate corded ware cultural layer, we do have a few places where we do have a very thick, good deposits, long-term used sites, also with the clear stationary settlement structures, pit houses, sunken floors. These are found from Lithuania, Estonia, and Finland. None known presently in Latvia, but Latvia is a bit special case. It's a bit empty spot anyway in the distribution of corded ware in the Eastern Baltic. Also return to that later. So we also have a very substantial dwelling constructions, and this is something that our colleague Teemu Mökkönen, he made a review of the corded ware houses published last year, where he also saw some resemblances and draw some parallels between corded ware houses and the contemporaries or preceding hunter-gatherer dwellings, especially in the sense of structure and organizing these pit houses or sunken floors. What else can be said about the settlement? We can say that even though the corded ware finds are often on the hunter-gatherer sites, as I said in the beginning, we have this constantly ongoing land uplift. Hunter-gatherer sites are shorebound. They are almost always connected to water. They are on the shore, meaning that over time, these shoreline locations, they raise up away from the immediate shoreline. So it might be that when the corded ware was present at the site, these places most likely were already not shore connected. And this is a nice modeling study done by the Estonian colleagues Karel Sik and others 2 years ago, showing that the distribution of corded ware sites in this depicts the distance from the shoreline has much more variation than any of the preceding stages. So meaning that the corded ware people had much more much more places to go in the landscape because they are so not tied to the water. But at the same time, we can also see that they tend to find different kind of places, more elevated places, still close to wetlands, which has been a strong indirect indication presented in favor of that the corded ware populations practiced maybe not agriculture, but at least animal husbandry, because this has been a long-standing problem in the Eastern Baltic. In the lack of other evidence, the placement of settlement sites has been one of the key points to defend this animal herding hypothesis. But still, be it as it may, we also have then corded ware sites in pure settings that you would imagine for hunter-gatherer sites. We have corded ware on the shores, we have corded ware in the archipelago of Finland, we have corded ware in the big Estonian islands in a fully marine settings. So we have really like 2 different signals coming from also from this from the placing of the settlement sites. So, yeah, so the problem, as I said, there has been a long-standing argument between people. It's been mostly based on their opinion that did coded ware practice producing economy or not, because we have had very few direct evidence. The few evidence we have had are few bone artifacts from the burials, which are of domestic animals. But at the same time, we have bone artifacts in the Baltic States burials, which are also made from wild species. So this is also, again, showing this bipolarity. But even then, accepting the presence of animal herding, the evidence of cultivation is still not there. We have some macrofossil studies made, and all of those have showed only wild species, berries, hazelnut, and so forth. Although I have to say that this lack of macrofossils cannot really still be used as an evidence against the missing of agriculture, because we have so few studies that that already explains that if you don't have studies, of course you cannot have the macrofossil evidence either. So this definitely is a thing that needs more attention in the future. But also from the refuse fauna, we can also say for sure that they did exploit partly the same wild fauna as the preceding hunter-gatherers in the region. Now, recently, biomarker and isotope analysis have really shown that, yes, they did practice animal herding. That's basically beyond doubt now in the Eastern Baltic area. We have dairy lipids, we have radiocarbon dates of domesticates that clearly go into the coded ware time and partly also to the very, very early part of it, or the earlier part of it. So there is no question about it. But at the same time, we have, for example, there is this upper left burial from, this is these two green dots connected by a line, they are from the same individual, showing that the person had a shift in diet during the lifetime, being born in having a very completely terrestrial diet, but over the years shifted into mixed diet, including much more aquatic components. And then going to the burials, yesterday and today we heard already many times that in Netherlands, southern Scandinavia, there are problems with the preservation, especially in the northern part of Eastern Baltic. In Finland, this is taken to the extreme because we have nothing left. We have zero preservation of organic material, meaning that any organics which is not burnt or in waterlogged conditions doesn't preserve. So we have and it's partly this central image here. This is from northern Estonia. So there are also regions where the bones just don't preserve. So we have just the pits and the artifacts, which means, yeah, that we have a very big problems in reconstructing the details of the burials, and then not to speak that there is no chance presently for any kind of bioarchaeological studies. What is another problem is that if you think that we have more than or around 500 find spots which we can classify as settlements in a broad sense of the term, we have maybe 70-80 burials known from whole the region. And even of this, only a handful has been actually archaeologically excavated. I would say like 90% of these have been found in connection to other land use. They have already been partly destroyed or completely destroyed, and archaeologists has been just collecting the material. We have some publications showing, for example, this is Selgas in Latvia, showing a nice reconstruction of the burial. But if you go, this is presented as it is in a publication. If you go to the report, you can read from there that this is actually a reconstruction drawn afterwards, a few years later, based on the oral information given by the landowner who found the stuff while digging a well. So archaeologists then later went and dug from the surroundings and find some of these grave goods, but actually how they were placed and what is the position of this adult woman and a child, it's just based on what has been told afterwards. And the small amount of material, bad preservation, poor documentation, means that actually we cannot confidently at the time, for example, still verify the existence of gendered burial practices in the Eastern Baltic, or how they went, placement of the grave goods, orientation of the burials. All this is just full speculation based on very small material. And the grave goods, we also have a regional variation. We have the battle axes, we have the working axes, we have the ceramics, especially in the north, in the Baltic states. Pottery is very rare in the burials. In Finland, it's the most common grave goods, so there is a lot of variation between the regions. Then there is also a phenomena which is separating Eastern Baltic burials from much of Europe. We have no barrows, none at all. Also very little evidence of any kind of internal structures of the burials. Instead, many of the burials are made to very small pits following the dimensions of the body, which is a thing that is very common for the hunter-gatherer burials. Also, some placement of the vessels and things are being interpreted as a hunter-gatherer influence on this burial practice. Another noteworthy thing is that we have 2 places where there are more than 1, 2, or 3 burials. We don't have cemeteries. And the burials are often placed nearby or at the settlement sites, which is again a feature that connects with the previous hunter-gatherer ways. And Volker and our colleague Maria Ahola, they published a few years ago a paper on Finnish corded ware burials, concluding that actually the Finnish corded ware burials show to some extent some syncretic features, potentially mixing with the hunter-gatherers. So then, zooming out, we can, yes, see, as was earlier today shown, that the introduction of corded ware to this area also means new genetic ancestry. But what comes to the demography, population dynamics, or relationships between these different human groups, we have no idea. This material we have has been read and interpreted in very many different ways from the same material. All these conclusions have been drawn. So we have this theory that the incomers replace the hunter-gatherers through violence, disease, or then by withdrawal of the populations. The problem is that, for example, we have no evidence of this kind of violence that Anna just showed. We have nothing of that kind. Then we have this coexistence hypothesis. Either it was equal and peaceful because they used different resources, they could live in the same area, or then corded ware maybe established itself as some kind of a superstructure on top of this, or then the full assimilation of population one way or the other, like corded ware people assimilating to hunter-gatherers or vice versa. But it's really difficult to verify any of these still as the matters stand. One indication of mixing has, of course, been material culture. We have some battle axes, for example, termed as imitations or even barbaric imitations. But this is also a question where you draw the line, how normative you want to keep your definition of corded ware culture, especially in such a contact area. So what is corded ware, what is not corded ware? That's, again, a thing that different researchers disagree. We do have indications, for example, in Estonia, some features in pottery which can find parallels in the contemporary hunter-gatherer wares. If it's a straight borrowing or mixing of population, cannot be said. We have some other artifact types found in corded ware context which bear very strong resemblance to the same time hunter-gatherer artifacts. But in all of these examples, they are all regional. You can find them in one area or the other, but there's nothing that we can really see uniting this whole territory. So to conclude, what can be said? We can see that when corded ware comes to this area, it transforms a lot. For example, this changes in subsistence, we can quite confidently say that a big part of that was because of the natural environment, because this environment is not just very good for this incipient or primitive food production. But then, as I've shown, there are also many indications of mixing of traditions. Also, what comes to the different corded ware, like different coded wares like traditionally said Finnish, Estonian, and so forth. Yeah, we do see that the sea is in some sense dividing. We have different looking material culture in different parts of the Baltic Sea, but at the same time this is a study by our colleagues a few years ago showing, based on geochemistry, that there is also quite a lot of connections across the Baltic Sea. We can see it also in material culture, for example, the Eastern Gulf of Finland, Southern Finland, Estonia, very closely connected in terms of similar artifacts. At the same time, we have a very interesting border emerging here. So River Daugava, as in many other times in prehistory, it seems to be a very big border also during coded ware. So coded ware of Lithuania, southern Latvia is quite different from what is then further north in the Baltic states. So we have a quite clear line there. Is this artifact of this what happens within the coded ware, or does this actually reflect the previous differences already in the cultural background? Remains to be seen. Then in terms of relationships with the hunter-gatherers, we can see that, for example, here we have a quite strict border. It's if we would plot the contemporaneous asbestos ware using groups, we would see their settlement sites going like here, and the leaking comes through these ends. So at the same time we have some sort of border here. We have quite a lot of indications of mixing of traditions and communication in the end areas. Also, Eastern Gulf of Finland area is very heavily, seems to be an interaction zone. At the same time, we can see, for example, southwestern Finland or inner Estonia, there are areas where we have evidence of the presence of both hunter-gatherer groups and coded ware groups simultaneously, so some sort of side-by-side living is taking place there. Then what happens afterwards? All through the third millennium towards the end, we see a constant increase in or reappearance of hunter-gatherer features all over the area. So it seems that is it then the environment, climatic decline, or the pressure from surrounding areas that kind of breaks the kind of coherence of the coded ware features, and it starts to break into even more regional phenomena, picking up more hunter-gatherer features, or do we just see the kind of failure of this coded ware way of life, either leaving, perishing, or fully adapting to the hunter-gatherer lifestyle? The problem is that, as I said, after 2500, especially towards the end of the third millennium, while we still have, for example, here very late dates for coded ware, in general, the material culture and the human presence in the area seems to decline. Is it the really true population? Is it something happening with the use of material culture? We cannot explain. But in many areas, we might have centuries long, even half a millennia and longer, like kind of empty period in the end of Stone Age. And then what emerges after that early Bronze Age, that is a completely new, different world. And it's not clear what is the contribution of these late Stone Age societies into this new world, because we clearly see also then genetic and cultural input both from the East and from the West. So, thank you.